That is the beginning of what I call the most misunderstood and misplayed jazz blues in history. That is the beginning of what I call the most misunderstood and misplayed jazz blues in history. It's Miles Davis's All Blues from the album Kind of Blue, which is either the second or third best-selling jazz album of all time. So you'd think that more people would get this right, but somehow or other they don't. And one case in point is if you go to YouTube or any of those other places and try to find a backing track for this tune, all of them, with maybe one exception, are wrong. And the reason why is about a three-leveled answer. The bass line, played on the recording by Paul Chambers, acts as kind of a drone. And it doesn't change when the tune goes to the four chord, because the tune doesn't really go to the four chord. It's a modal blues. The one chord is the Mixolydian mode. By the way, this tune is in 3/4 or 6/4, however you want to think of it. And there's this little vamp that's being played by the saxophones, who happen to be John Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley. It's so simple over the bass line. When the four chord comes, they go. It's basically G minor or G Dorian for the four chord, and G Mixolydian, G7 for the one chord. And on the melody, the pianist, Bill Evans, he doesn't play any chords at all. He just does this thing that sounds like a butterfly hovering overhead. Like that in fourths. So it's like that. And that sets the table for Miles Davis to play probably the simplest blues melody ever written beside Duke Ellington's C-Jam Blues, which just has two notes in it. And the melody just goes. Sometimes he adds. And then the turnaround is the 5 chord with a sharp 9. And then the flat 6 chord with a sharp 9 for half a bar. And then back to the 99% of the time when people play it, the bass player goes to the 4 chord. Absolutely wrong. Paul Chambers, one of the greatest jazz bass players of all time, he just hugged that pattern. Sort of like the drone in Indian music. The underlying drone. Whoops. Like that. And he kept it on the 4 chord, which, as I said, was really G minor. Later, of course, Bill Evans comps on piano. And again, and he never really plays the 4 chord. Every once in a while you hear kind of a C chord and these clusters. They're close voice clusters. And it owes something to French music as well, the music of Maurice Ravel and Claude Debussy, which were huge influences on Miles and Bill Evans. And they were also listening to Indian music and all sorts of other things. They're trying to break free of the stereotypical jazz blues. And in Miles' solo on the first recording, he doesn't depart at all from the notes of the Mixolydian mode when it's time for the 1 chord, and the Dorian mode when it's time for that 4 chord, which is really not a 4 chord, as I showed you. It's really just the one chord minor, the one chord Dorian. And the other soloist, Cannonball Adderley, plays it more like bebop. And John Coltrane does what John Coltrane does, which was genius every time he picked up the horn. So it was a very democratic band that Miles never told anybody how to play, but he laid this thing out, and they all had great respect for the structures that Miles laid out, and that Bill Evans also had a lot to do with. So the great Jimmy Cobb was playing drums and just playing absolutely perfectly. And in later recordings, you hear Miles doing it with his quintet with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter and Ron Carter. But Ron Carter still stuck to that underpinning of G when it came to the 4-chord. Miles played the melody absolutely differently over the years. He played it, I think, every single time he played live after he recorded this tune. It's amazing if you think about it. For you harmonica players there, you'll notice I'm playing a golden melody, and this is in the key of C. Because 99% of the time when harmonica players play blues, they want to play in what's called cross harp, so the key a fifth above the key of the harp. The third whole draw. And then the melody requires you to bend basically the first few notes of the G minor scale. A, B flat, and then C, up to D. So it really takes a lot of control over the third whole draw to do this. And then on the turnaround, which is the 5-chord, you're playing the A, and then the B flat, and then like that. It's such a minimal melody. It just has a few notes. So I'm going to play along to a little track that I recorded here on my keyboard. And there's an introduction of 4 bars. And then I come in with the melody, and then I play the solo. There's no interlude after the melody. Okay, just a little demonstration here, a little demo solo for you all. Enough. So now I'm going to show it to you on a different harmonica for all you harmonica players out there. I'm going to play it on a B flat harmonica. And the reason why I've chosen the B flat, it's not an obvious choice for playing a blues in G. I mean, usually you're going to play a blues in G on a C harp, or maybe in third position on an F harp. But here, this is what's called fourth position. Its natural modality is the notes that are there on the harmonica. Play the G or Aeolian mode, which is the natural minor scale. But here we're playing Mixolydian and Dorian. You notice there's only one note difference between those two. It's pretty fascinating. And that's kind of what Miles was doing. He was painting these different shades for you, showing the blues like a jazz painting. In order to do this on a B flat, obviously you have to have the ability to play overblows, you know. But it actually makes the melody easier because that is the fourth whole draw bend. And then that passage is a lot easier because we have the second third whole draw and the minor third is a fourth whole blow. The other notes are there naturally too. It's not as hard to control as hitting those third whole draw bends on the C harp. And then the turnaround. Fits really well. So I'm going to solo over it for you now on the B flat harmonica. Setting up the mood, right? Well, I hope this gives harmonica players a little inspiration to try to play this tune, as well as any other jazz musicians who are watching to try to play it faithfully for the modal jazz exploration that it is.